If smoking is something everyone wants to quit, why does it often feel like the one thing we can't let go of? Every smoker knows the statistics. Every smoker has heard the warnings. And yet the ritual continues, not because they don't understand the harm, but because somewhere beneath the logic, beneath the fear, beneath the shame, there's something else, something quieter, something that doesn't speak in facts or consequences. Smoking isn't just a chemical addiction. It's a pause, a ritual, a quiet rebellion against a world that demands too much, too fast, without ever asking what we actually need. This is a story about why people smoke, but it's really a story about what we're all trying to escape.
It's 2 a.m. The apartment is silent. She closes the door softly behind her, careful not to wake anyone. The air is cold, but she doesn't notice. She lights a cigarette. Not because she needs nicotine, not even because she's craving it, but because out here, in this small rectangle of space between the world and herself, she can finally breathe. Inside, there are dishes in the sink, unread messages, unspoken resentments, a life that feels like a list she can't finish. But out here, for 3 minutes, none of it exists. She's not smoking to relax. She's smoking because it's the only moment all day when no one expects anything from her, where she doesn't have to perform or fix or explain, where she can just be nothing. And when the cigarette burns down to the filter, there's a strange sadness, because now she has to go back. This is what most people don't understand about smoking. It's not the cigarette people are addicted to. It's the pause, the permission, the 3-minute window where the world stops asking questions.
Psychologists call smoking a portable coping mechanism, but that phrase doesn't capture the full weight of what it actually does. When you grow up in chaos, your nervous system learns to live in a state of emergency. Your body becomes a place you can't trust. Your thoughts spiral. Your emotions feel too big, too sharp, too uncontrollable. And somewhere along the way, you discover something that brings it all down to a manageable hum. A cigarette doesn't just calm the body, it gives you a script, a ritual, a series of small, predictable movements that anchor you when everything else feels uncertain. Light it, inhale, hold, exhale, repeat. It's meditation for people who were never taught to meditate. It's self-regulation for those who never learned what that phrase even means. It's a way to press pause on a nervous system that's been running on overdrive since childhood. For many smokers, the habit didn't begin with peer pressure or rebellion. It began with survival, a way to manage anxiety in a body that felt like it was always on the edge of breaking, a way to numb feelings that were too overwhelming to name. And once that connection forms, once smoking becomes the bridge between unbearable and bearable, it stops being a choice. It becomes a relationship. But there's another layer, a quieter one. Many smokers don't just adopt the habit, they inherit it. They remember the way their father smoked in silence after a long day, the way their mother stood on the porch, lost in thought, smoke curling upward like unspoken words. They remember how smoking meant pause, reflection, a brief escape from responsibility. And years later, without realizing it, they find themselves reaching for the same ritual, not because they consciously chose it, but because somewhere deep in their emotional memory, smoking means this is how you survive when life gets heavy. It's not rebellion, it's repetition, an unspoken inheritance passed down through generations, wrapped in the language of nicotine, but rooted in something far older, the need to cope with what cannot be said aloud.
But smoking is also social, intensely, intimately social. Let's go smoke. In that simple phrase, there's an invitation, not just to smoke, but to step outside the performance of daily life, to speak freely, to complain without judgment, to exist for a moment without pretense. In school, it's where friendships form. In the military, it's where soldiers bond. In offices, it's the unofficial break where the real conversations happen. Smoking becomes a passport to micro-communities, small circles of people who understand that sometimes you just need to step away. And for those who feel isolated, anxious, or out of place, that sense of belonging is intoxicating, more so than nicotine itself. The cigarette becomes a bridge, a reason to talk to a stranger, a way to signal, I'm tired too, I'm stressed too, I need a break too. In a world that glorifies productivity and punishes vulnerability, smoking offers something radical. Permission to stop, permission to be human, permission to say without words, I'm struggling, and I don't have to explain why.
And then there's the illusion smoking provides. The sense that in a life full of things you cannot control, at least this one thing is yours. You can't control your job. You can't control your relationships. You can't control the constant hum of anxiety that lives just beneath your skin. But you can control when you light a cigarette, when you inhale, when you exhale. In that small act, there's agency, a quiet rebellion against a world that feels overwhelming and chaotic, a way of saying, this moment is mine. But the paradox is brutal, because over time, the thing that felt like control becomes the thing controlling you. The pause you needed becomes the thing you can't live without. The ritual that once grounded you becomes the cage you can't escape. And still you return to it, not because it helps, but because it's familiar. Because the alternative, facing the anxiety, the stress, the emptiness without it, feels impossible.
People don't smoke because they are weak. They smoke because for a brief moment it quiets a world that feels too loud. They smoke because no one taught them another way to handle the weight they carry. Because their nervous system learned early that the world is unsafe, and smoking became the one thing that made it feel manageable. Because it's easier to hold a cigarette than to hold the grief,
the rage, the loneliness that lives beneath the surface. Smoking doesn't relieve stress. It relieves the fear of facing stress alone. The cigarette isn't nicotine. It's a pause from oneself, a brief intermission in a life that never stops demanding, a 3-minute window where you don't have to be strong or functional or okay. And that's why it's so hard to quit. Because quitting smoking doesn't just mean giving up a habit. It means giving up the only coping mechanism you've ever trusted. It means learning to sit with discomfort without an escape route. It means facing the silence, the anxiety, the unspoken grief that the cigarette has been quietly managing all along. It means becoming someone new, and that's terrifying.
Behind every cigarette is a story, a wound, a memory, a need that never found the right words. Behind every smoker is someone who learned to survive in the only way they knew how. Someone who found refuge in a ritual that promised, however briefly, that everything would be okay. People don't cling to smoking because it feels good. They cling because, for a moment, it feels like something finally understands them.